Sunset at a Time by Albinocorn. Epilogue. All the difference. She is floating. She had no physical form. She simply was, if only just. Something was trying to erase her, like she was no more than a drawing. She didn't want to leave. A desire in her, feeling deep within her fading form, told her to hold on. Yes, she could remember something. It was faint and distorted in a way, but she knew the feeling. It was warm and inviting and loving. Gentle waves of its power washed over her and pulled her back. Darkness appeared. She was no longer alone in this void. It was cold and angry. Some of Melissa's waves crashed against her, disrupting serene harmony. The cold creeped over her, bringing back horrible feelings and memories. Death, hatred, power. But she wasn't that being anymore. She was her own being. She was separate. She was light. Her light pushed the darkness away and pulled harmony closer to her. Faces drifted in the ether, friendly and familiar. They circled around her, forming a protective ring and pushing the cold away. She was getting stronger. Names were coming back to add to the faces. There was Luna and Spike, Abstract and Fluttershy, Pinky and Rainbow Dash, and Rarity. Ruby and Flora, and her mom and dad. There was Celestia. From the darkness, she felt something stronger than hatred or anger. She felt regret and sadness. In the abyss, the darkness wailed a slow, painful cry. She reached out and consulted against her better judgment. The darkness had tried to kill her, after all. She knew someone would be proud of her, someone important. With the push of her will, she sent a wave of light over the darkness, sharing the feelings of her memories. Joy, hope, love, faith. High emotions circled both of them, driving away the negativity until, within the darkness, she could see a small speck of light. Darkness halted the wave. She could feel it floating upwards to something beyond. It stumbled back a few times, like something was dragging it back down. Then the darkness released a burst of heat, completely driving the cold away. Drifted up higher and higher. The light at its center was glowing a little brighter. As it vanished, she heard two soft words. They were not spoken, but felt like the rest of her memories. Thank you. There was only light now. Her light and her will. She still was. The erasing had stopped. Something was missing. A very important piece of her. One more name to face. She could remember the soft caress of her wings, her crystalline laugh, enthusiasm from teaching. And a promise. There was a promise that needed to be kept. Yes. She would all see all of her friends again. She would not fade away. She would not sit in this abyss. She would continue. A spark of magic coursed through her. All around her she could hear them giving her encouragement, cheering her name, her own name. She'd forgotten that, too. But it wasn't her name that mattered. It was the other name, the one that always believed in her, even when she couldn't believe in herself. She reached for it. It was the key, the last thing she needed to remember. Twilight, Twilight, Twilight Sparkle, Princess. Hope. More than a friend, more than a princess, Twilight was her hope. The magic burned hot, white hot, and began to take form. She felt herself grow less aware, but more real. Little by little, bit by bit, she returned, her soul burning brighter than ever. Foal's cry echoed throughout the room. The sun rose through the window in front of Princess Twilight Sparkle as she lay curled on a large pillow in her study. She had been up an hour ago so she could enjoy the sunrise. She loved watching the dark of night and the light of new day mix and mingle before one took over. She took a sip of her morning tea to return to her book when the last pink of dawn faded. She guessed she still had about an hour before she had to get ready for the day. The face of her book turned as she sighed. All she had to look forward to today was court systems and paperwork. On the table sat two large empty bowls. A few hours ago, they contained massive amounts of ice cream, courtesy of Pinkie Pie. Twilight chuckled, remembering last night. Storytelling and ice cream, one of her favorite activities to do with her faithful student. She was surprised he had managed to finish it all. Of course, they both conked out to that 5 minutes after their bowls were empty. Twilight mused over the fact she wasn't an ice cream cone, so she sipped it under her wing and let out a small snort. Well, one of us might be in one. She continued to read with a smile on her face. For the remainder of the hour, she was snatched from her peace and relaxation when the guards pounded the door, reminding her that court began at 40. drove lump when her wing moved again. As much as Twilight wanted to sit there and enjoy the moment, she knew it was time for both of them to get up. She pulled her wing back, revealing a bedhead of crimson and gold hair, along with teal fairy eyes. "Good morning, Princess." Twilight leaned down and nuzzled her young student's neck. "Good morning, Sunset." There's supposed to be a next part of the epilogue. But for right now, everybody, on three. 1, 2, 3. Aww! I'm conflicted. Why is that? Well, there's this epilogue plus here that merely follows Sunset with Celestia walking down and talking to a version of Sunset that's into Tartarus. But that previous epilogue was just so damn perfect. It doesn't feel right, you know? It doesn't feel like it works. Like, the whole resolution just revolves around it. True. But if we look at it this way, this part of the epilogue does cement Celestia's and Sunset's arc. Yeah, but the story had been nothing but Twilight's connection with Sunset, and Sunset finding rebirth and moving on from her past. Well, the audience would probably be a little miffed if we didn't read every chapter. You're right. I suppose we should read this epilogue anyway, give them a chance to think about it for themselves, if it fits or not. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. The black road continued to stretch deeper into the unyielding abyss. Darkness surrounded her on all sides, unaffected by the ball of light hanging on the tip of her horn. She wore only a plain covering trunk, no crown, no regalia. For the Tartarus hardly cared for titles. Her status was just enough to get her past the gates. Beyond them, she was no princess. She was a Celestia. Contrary to popular belief, Tartaria was cold. A haunting cold appears not just the body, but the very soul. The air was thick with lamentations and regrets. Sobs, moaning, and insane laughter filled the void. Prisoners were hardly tortured here. No, their punishment was solitude. To sit in their prisons alone and undisturbed until the end of time. Left to reflect on their actions and weep for their sins. Many lost their minds for loneliness. Celestia kept a calm but brisk pace. The cold stone bit into her hose, making every step harder than the last. Flying was forbidden to Tartarus. She had meant to make this trip earlier, much earlier. She had a perfect opportunity right after T-Rex had been re-imprisoned, but felt her country took precedence as it always did. Nothing about this trip was certain. All she knew, she was dragging her hose across the rough stones for nothing. Still, she had to be sure, if there was even a small chance, Celestia was willing to take it. The paths sloped up and branched into 3 separate paths. Celestia paused to strain her eyes to the endless dark. They flickered at the end of each path. Question was, which did he take? After examining each option, she took the far right, following it over a bottomless ravine. It was the direction of the heart, nothing more. On the other side of the ravine was a circle of rocks enclosing a prison made from a ring of light. Celestia stepped up to the ring's edge and placed a hoof on the invisible barrier, separating her and the prisoner on the other side. Her heart had led her the right way. They sat at the far end, wrapped in a black cloak that covered everything. If they noticed Celestia, they gave no indication. Continued to stare at the cavern wall, completely still. Celestia made a small cough. It echoed through the cave and sounded like an avalanche to Celestia's ears. Got the prisoner's attention, however. They turned around and stumbled over the barrier, keeping their face hidden. A voice, raspy from disuse, escaped the hood. "The princess has graced me with her presence. I feel honored." Try as she might, Celestia couldn't see the darkness the hood provided, but she knew who it was under all the same. "Hello, Sunset," she said, using her strength to keep her voice from trembling. "How are you?" "Tired," Sunset's hood whisked back and forth. "And you still call me by that name. I am not Sunset Celestia, not anymore." "I refuse to call you Vesperadiance," Celestia said sternly. "You are still my Sunset, regardless of what happened. You can change your name as many times as you like, but I will call you Sunset Simmer, as that is the pony I loved. That's the pony you are still deep inside. Sunset made a cross between a cough and a rattle of tiny beads. Then Celestia realized she was still laughing. Still perfect. Still the wonderful alicorn that deserves to be admired. Her laughter dissolved into coughs, then degraded to hacking. Celestia pushed her hoof to the barrier, but was unable to reach Sunset. The coughing fit lasted for several minutes before Sunset fell to her side, gasping for air. Celestia lay on her belly, putting herself at eye level to her. Are you all right, Sunset? She struggled for air, occasionally breaking into smaller fits again. She murmured something unintelligible in between her wheezing. What was that? Name. Is it Sunset? She pushed herself into sitting position. Vesper Radiance. Celestia folded her ears. She stretched her neck out to nuzzle Sunset, but was reminded of Frenchfield once again. Why do you insist on being called that? Sunset's hood turned away. Her voice came out sharp and rough. Because she took my real name away. She's the better of us two. It fell to a feathery whisper. She proved that in the end. She was superior. She's the real one. I'm just a phantom. Sunset's voice trailed away. Something small and glurly fell from the forehead of her hood. That isn't true. You're just as real as she is, despite what happened. Yes, she took a better path than you. She accepted harmony and friendship. She was prepared to sacrifice herself for her friends. But that doesn't make you any less real than she was. Celestia closed her eyes. I remember all the good times we had together. I remember your laughter and innocent curiosity for knowledge. I remember all your efforts to make me smile, or cheer me up after a hard day. I remember your love, Sunset. That was all real to me. The silence of Tartarus seemed to double when Celestia stopped speaking. Sunset kept her back turned, remaining still as stone. A phantom, she repeated. I'm a shell of who that mare was. She's dead. She died when you crowned Twilight Sparkle. I am not her, and my reincarnation turned herself into something far better than I was. So where does that leave me? There was another rattling cough. By all rights, I shouldn't even be here. I vaporized myself into so many pieces. I should never come back, in that life or down here. She raised the hem of her cloak and revealed something that could be barely called a hoof. It was made mostly of swirling gray dust, trying to piece itself back together, combined with fragments of solid bone. You go to Tartarus, how you die. Only there was nothing left of me to send. She rattled again. Perhaps the Maker was granting me a mercy by piecing together as much as she could. Celestia pinned her ears back and swallowed the lump rising in her throat. She knew Sunset had committed heinous crimes, and it needed some form of punishment. Wasn't this a little bit much? If you ask certain people, it isn't enough. Look at you people at We Hate MLP forums. Sparks jumped for the tip of Celestia's horn, but as much as she wanted to break through the barrier or wrap her hose around Sunset, she knew she couldn't. The magic of Tartarus was beyond her. Sunset retracted a hoof, her body switched to side. Why are you here? I wanted to see you. The cloak turned away. No, you wanted to see Sunset shimmer. She's dead. Celestia stood tall, narrowing her eyes. No, she is not. She's only dead if you let her die, Sunset. There was a small scraping sound as Sunset tried to paw at the dirt. You put far too much faith in me, Celestia. Then answer me one question, Sunset. Celestia exhaled slowly, remembering what happened the last time she had asked this question. Do you regret anything? Do you regret any of the actions you took on the path that brought you here? There was no wind in Tartarus, but something swept across Celestia all the same. But they're colder than before, pulled back her cloak quietly across her body. Sunset, meanwhile, said not a word. She scraped at the ground several times. An odd sound between a cough and a pant came from her hood. She looked over her shoulder and said in an even scratchier voice than before, I regret disappointing you. Remorse dragged itself through the air, wrapping the 2 ponies in a cold cocoon. Sunset's remorse held her through her prison, permeated the air around Celestia. And yet, it sparked a warmth in her heart. Sunset continued, I just wanted to make you happy. No, I wanted to make myself happy. I thought making you acknowledge me and only me would do it. I was blinded by my ambition to make you love me. And I forgot why I was doing so in the first place. Another piece of glitter fell from the darkness of her hood. I'm sorry. Celestia gave her a wiry smile. You see, the sunset I love isn't dead. She was just lost and confused. She hiccuped and wiped her face. I'm sorry I couldn't help you find your way in time. Another rattling, rasping laugh Celeste sunset. Celestia, my bleeding heart princess, apologizing for something that wasn't your fault. I'm not blameless in this sunset. I told you before I'm not infallible. A soft pause. You're always perfect to me. For a time neither said a word. Celestia stood, staring at the back of Sunset's cloak, while Sunset sat, hunched over, completely still. Looking at her, looking at the remains of her daughter, broken and remorseful. Celestia's chest knotted up. She wanted to weep and cheer at the same time. More than anything, she just wanted to hug Sunset once more. Sunset cleared her throat and looked over her shoulder. Has she come back yet? Celestia tipped her head. Not yet. Twilight says she could feel her, though. She's getting a little closer every day. Sunset nodded. I can feel her, too. She's determined I'll give her that much. She dragged herself against the ground, to defy the denial of existence, to overcome time and space. I still do not understand. She showed me some of it, allowed me to experience some of its warmth, but... Sunset turned around, keeping her hood low. Is friendship truly that powerful? Celestia slowly raised her hoof and pushed it against the barrier again. It is one of the strongest forces in existence, Sunset. When coupled with love, it creates a power no one can truly understand. But it protects us and guides us, even in our deepest despair. The cloak trembled in hesitation, and very carefully an amber hoof appeared from within. The fur around it was short and patchy. The hoof was whole. Sunset raised it priced against Celestia's. What do you do when they all leave? When they abandon you? True friends will never abandon you, Sunset. They will stay with you in your heart forever. Celestia pressed her hoof harder to the shield, hoping she could graze Sunset's hoof. Simple touch to show she cared. Sad, Sunset finally raised her head up. From within the darkness, Celestia saw one teal eye stare back at her, full of remorse and desire for real love. Sunset pulled her hoof away and lowered her head. I know why I lost, why I failed, but still, she shook her head. She was unsure of what to say next. Celestia still wanted to offer some words of solace. This words startled her before she could say anything else, however. She pinned her ears back, looking at the long roads you had to traverse. I'm afraid I have to go, Sunset. A teal light appeared again. Oh, I understand. She picked herself up and trudged back to the center of her prison. Celestia wiped a tear from her cheek. I'm sorry, no, it's okay. The crack in her voice was unnoticeable to all but Celestia. You're the princess. Equestria needs you. It doesn't deserve you, but it needs you. You need me too, my lost little pony. Even if you don't want to admit it anymore. When Sunset spoke no more, Celestia turned down the path. Her ears twitched as she looked back. What? Will you visit me again? The corners of Celestia's mouth folded upwards. Of course I will. I promise. She had taken 2 steps when she heard a soft, sincere voice say, I love you, Mother. Celestia looked back, seeing the young filly she had taken in so many years ago. She was struggling, but she was still alive. I love you too, Sunset. This fic is pretty dang good. Though not without the issues. First of all, it's the Celestia problem. As I stated in the previous chapter, when you have Celestia doing this, you're stuck with 2 possible outcomes. Either A, Celestia gets her ass handed to her by Sunset, at which point you're wondering why did she even bother? Or B, she takes over the scene and the main 6 just feel like they're doing nothing but sitting around and acting like the delivery ponies. And that's the way it felt in this story. When Celestia came in, that was it. Suddenly, C started taking over, and the main six, who we had been following for so long, were just like, we'll take care of the side boss. You do you. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just the type of guy who's getting sick and tired of hearing all these people whining again and again. We should have Celestia here. Celestia should do something. Celestia should take over. Celestia should be doing this. Celestia. I love her too, but guys, come on. Last I checked, Twilight and her friends are the main characters. They're the heroes of the story. And I hate to tell certain members of a certain site this, but heroes are not always He-Man. Sometimes they're the farmers. Sometimes they are the little animal caretakers. All you really need to be a hero is to stand up and do what's right. And that's what the main six are for. That's why they got the items of destiny. That's why they're here. But nope. Gotta have Celestia do this. And it just takes me out. And I feel like saying Celestia should have been fighting the Frostlets or something. Maybe it would have been better had Vesper met up with Celestia and we had all that beforehand. Because you can't have Celestia in your story and have her do something that doesn't impede on the main six. You could have her take out the Frostlets, like I said. You could have her do something bigger. Have her do something else for a while. Hell, Luna was doing a good job. Luna was doing an excellent job of being this side character that was supporting Sunset. That was so much better than just have Sunset go, I am here to fight you, my daughter. Oh no, I've been defeated. That's always what gets me when this happens. My other problem comes from when the main six are fighting off against the Griffins, and it takes them about half a chapter to remember, oh wait, we got backbones. Like, really? You guys didn't know this already. Like, the author wanted them to run, but then remembered, oh wait, they can actually fight. When you do that, it just feels worthless, and it just feels like we should have just had a cool fight scene anyway. Though I will give you this, the Griffins were cool. I think my other problem was that sometimes Sunset's emotions went from, I understand where you're coming from, to nagging. On the other hand, these are just small nitpicks. Everything else was great. I love the main six's development. I love the fact that all the girls had a chance to show off some of their fights. Well, okay, this is the other bad side. Rarity barely did anything. Come on, guys. It's not that hard to have Rarity show off her skills of being a dressmaker and turn it into archery. Come on! But the others got to do some cool things, too. I was kind of shocked, though, that Pinky didn't get to be the main emotional focus, but still, she did a lot of good cheering Sunset up. I liked Twilight when she wasn't being a crybaby. Once again, this fic decides to join its brothers and let's make Twilight a crybaby every 5 minutes. And I loved Rainbow Dash being awesome. I loved Appletax's cool moments. I also liked the whole item search and how each one of them was different. I also liked the idea of the items, and there was plenty of great world building and storytelling. The pacing was excellent, and I did love how everything worked. All in all, this was a really great story, and I'm glad to have read it and spent so long doing this. Next time, we'll take it a little easier. Lunaverse.